Welcome back, Bucks fans, to another episode of Hear the Canids presented by BucsGameday, a subset of Sports Illustrated, covering all things Tampa Bay Buccaneers for you guys. So if you guys are watching via YouTube, go ahead, like, subscribe, get those updates from us every day. We've got post-training camp stuff going up. We've got videos from training camp going up, all kinds of pressers from players and coaches as well. So check us out on YouTube, like and subscribe there. Check us out on Twitter. You can follow myself at CHS Knoll, one of the writers, or our main editor over here joining me tonight at River H. Wells. You can follow him on Twitter as well. River, how you doing tonight, man? I know we're starting a little late, but that's on me.
All good. Yeah, we are here now, and we're going after some technical difficulties. But yeah, just chilling. Training camp was today. It was not bad to start in that rain, and then we went inside. So, but now I think we got one more day of camp in the morning, and then we have quite a few mornings available after with our schedule. So that's nice too.
Oh yeah, I'll be there in the morning. It's very interesting today. Like this morning, it was nice out, a little overcast. We were very thankful for that. I'm sure the players were too. And then the dark clouds started rolling in. But I guess the big news, River. Also, guys, if you're watching, tuning in on YouTube, leave us comments, leave us questions on there. We'll try and bring them on the screen and get to those as we go throughout the show as well. Appreciate you guys tuning in. But the big news is, we're getting ready for preseason week 1. Heading up to Cincinnati to face off against the Bengals. We've already kind of heard from their side that Joe Burrow is going to, play some snaps there. So they're going to play some of their ones. Todd Bowles hasn't quite given us a direct answer on if the starters for the Buccaneers are going to be playing yet or not.
He has not. No. Yeah.
He likes to keep things close to his chest. The Buccaneers have been that way for quite some time, and it's kind of just rolled over with Todd Bowles as well. But with that first preseason game, we always get the first unofficial depth chart because it is ever evolving type of deal. This thing is set to change weekly based on who's going to play, who's not going to play. Yep. During the regular season, injuries come into play as well. So looking at that, River, let's just start things off from the top. The quarterbacks is what it is. Is it really what you expect? We kind of heard from Todd Bowles that Kyle Trask was having some good days and put together some good days. So he's kind of secured that QB2 spot that he held last year behind Baker.
Yeah, he had a good start to his day today, and then he had some picks later on the day. He threw one to Kayvon Merriweather, I believe. I believe that was Merriweather, and then another to Josh Hayes during red zone work to end the day. So a little bit shaky, but we heard from him afterward, and he had some cool stuff to say. He talked about helping out the rookies, guys like Bucky Irving. He mentioned specifically people who are coming into the NFL and not understanding and having to ask some questions. And he was like, I tell them every day, ask me whatever questions you want. So it's great to have that presence in the locker room regardless. And that's a big benefit of having Kyle Trask there. But it'll be interesting. Wolford's had a pretty shaky camp, more so than Kyle Trask, I think. So
yeah,
I think Kyle might end up still taking that job, but Wolford knows the offense, obviously. So we want to see. But right now, I got Kyle.
Kyle. We'll just keep staying here offense. Back. Any surprises there? I know we do see Chase there ahead of Bucky, but that could be changed upon. Obviously, we're not going to see Edmonds this upcoming Saturday due to him being out with an injury the past couple of weeks. So any surprises there? You expect Bucky to end up coming up there, and do you think are we gonna keep four back there with Sean Tucker?
That's a really good question. My initial instinct is when we look at the depth chart, which we could definitely talk about this pod too because it just dropped. I believe Sean Tucker is mentioned on the depth chart as a returner for kicks. And if that's the case, and they do like their running backs, taking 4 would be understandable because then you could use 2 or at least 1 more extra for kick returns. So definitely possible there. They have a lot of running backs in right now. They got Ramon Jefferson. KJ Williams is in there too. But I think it's definitely possible with the new kickoff rules. Interestingly enough, I feel like we've been seeing, in practice at least, we've been seeing receivers, more so than running backs in that position. We've seen Bucky Irving take some kicks. We've seen Rashad White even take some kicks, which I'm assuming is a just in case break glass option, because I think the last thing we need to do for Rashad White is give him more touches. But yeah, I think they might keep 4. We talked about this with JC when he's been on the pod. It's interesting to see exactly what the player comp is going to be now that the new kickoff rules are there. So it'll be fun to watch. I think it's definitely possible. I think Sean Tucker might stick around just for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, looking at those new kickoff rules, they want speed back there, guys who can make plays. So it would make a little bit of sense. Like as mentioned, Bucky Irving, Chase, those kind of can be intertwined as the season progresses. But as of now, it looks like Chase has that spot despite the injury. But we'll see more of Bucky. We'll probably see Bucky carry, the load here this upcoming Saturday.
Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
Right. And then, going to the tight end room here, we have obviously the guy who took 97% of the lion's share of snaps. K. Dotton returning, obviously your tight end number 1. Payne Durham there at number 2 tight end. That's Todd Bowles talking about how he's, expecting him to take a little bit more upon his plate this upcoming season. So I like seeing that.
Right.
And then the Keith, Devin Culp debate as well. So, 3 tight ends, 4 tight ends sitting there. But I kind of like how this shapes out. But it looks like Culp might kind of force Bowles to kind of either make a decision or keep, 4 tight ends on the roster.
Right. Well, Dave Canales was very into 12 personnel, that being 2 tight ends. He did enjoy using. You often would see, Keith and K. Dotton on the field. You'd see Payne Durham and K. Dotton on the field. So I think because particularly Liam Cohen is an 11 personnel guy, he comes from the Sean McVay tree, and Sean McVay is definitely a big 11 personnel guy. You're going to see more 1 tight end sets. And because of that, I think Keith's effectiveness there is going to drop a little bit, at least in conjunction to how Canales used to run his offense. So I think really Culp's got a decent shot over Keith because the athletic potential is there. Keith and Culp's preseason will be interesting to watch because I'm curious to see exactly where they fit in that offense and how often they're used. Because they really like the potential of Devin Culp over Keith. Like I mentioned, maybe a better fit for the offense in certain packages. It'll be interesting to see there. But right now, if you were to ask me, I'm not, going to 100% say I have a crystal ball, but I think Culp might get a nod over there because of the way the formations go. And then Keith started the year a little banged up, but now he's back. But I think they're going to not keep too many tight ends in the roster, and they like Payne Durham too. So
yeah, I mean that makes a whole lot of sense, especially for what we've been seeing from Culp, since he's been here in rookie minicamp, and now training camp, is that he does, possess that explosive playability that, you kind of want in an offense that, Liam Cohen is going to run. So it makes sense that, he would possibly, leapfrog Keith there and then Keith kind of be the odd guy out. So it's kind of more of a matching scheme to how the offense wants to look moving forward rather than, trying to be loyal to a guy, which kind of sucks because Keith has been a big part of this team for the past, 1 or 2 years. So, he's been a fan favorite as well. Everybody likes him.
Baker Mayfield's first Buccaneers pass attempt was to Keith in Minnesota. So
yeah, so I mean, it would suck to see that, but everybody understands it's a business at the end of the day. So let's get into the juicy parts. Let's start in the trenches. Let's start in the trenches, man, because obviously we saw the Suopeta injury knocking him out for the season. So that slots in Brett to be the automatic there at the guard position. Currently, last year's starting center Robert Hainsey is listed as the number 1 center on the starting depth chart, which is a decent deal. We've seen him and rookie Grant Barton out of Duke kind of receive, a 50-50 split of those snaps with the ones in practice. I don't really think they've kind of made up their mind on who's ahead in this battle because I understand, kind of where Hainsey's at, but they want to see, the strides that Graham can possibly make throughout, training camp and preseason. So I think it's interesting. I don't think it's very stuck in the mud when it comes to being the placement for these guys. But any other surprises there? I don't really see anything other than, Brandon Walton there at right tackle. You can kind of slide him all over the place. So you could, put him behind guard if you need to for depth or whatever it may be. But other than Hainsey be over Barton to start the first preseason game, I don't want to dig too much into it because it doesn't tell me a lot because we haven't really gotten to the point where we can be like, yeah, this guy kind of got a little bit of a hold on this thing.
Yeah, I would be shocked if Hainsey started over Barton come week 1. I think Barton's definitely going to end up being the starter there. And I think Hainsey's done some decent work in Tampa Bay. And obviously, as a veteran, he's going to have a certain leg up when the competition starts, which technically it is right now. But I think they'll go with Barton. And otherwise, I agree. Bredesen had the leg up on Opeta. And unfortunately, Opeda's ACL tear means he no longer can compete with Bredesen, so Bredesen will get the job there. So the line's pretty much set at that point. And again, I would be pretty surprised if Barton wasn't able to crack that starting spot. So.
Yeah, it's not shocking. And the things that we've been hearing about Barton from, teammates or coaches is that, he still has stuff to learn. He is probably coming in as a rookie, learning one of the more difficult positions on the football field to play, because at the end of the day, yes, the quarterback is in charge of everything, on the offensive side, but who gets him in their spots? Who gets the other guys in their spots?
Right.
Who's the one, directing the quarterback at who's possibly blitzing or who's doing this or what guy to watch per se. So having a rookie come in, that's difficult, making sure everybody's in the right spot, being able to get your reads down, being able to form that connection on, between the snap and the handoff to the quarterback. So,
which, he's had a little bit of trouble with that this training camp, but I've obviously tweeted it out when it happened because that's reporting on training camp, but I wouldn't be too worried about that. I think he'll definitely get used to it and get the reps, and he's learning just like anyone else is learning as a rookie. So I wouldn't be super concerned about that happening unless it starts happening in games, but I think he'll clean that up by the time that it's ready to go, and I think he'll be starting week 1.
Yep, I can't agree more. I'm not going to keep diving into it. Like I said,
don't.
I'm going to keep it. Then don't. All right, let's go to the fun guys. Let's go to the skill guys that we're looking at. Obviously, your wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2. You got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin at number 3, wide receiver number 3, which has been the big talking point there. Trey Palmer, the number 3 wide receiver for the Bucs last year. Thoughts on that coming in over Jalen?
That's another player that I would be surprised if he stays there. Come preseason. Trey Palmer did a lot of good stuff last year. He showed some potential, especially as a deep ball threat. There was a lot he had to work on, and he was a 6th-round pick, and he played, honestly, an incredible amount of snaps last year for a 6th-round pick. I think there's definitely some means to still want to develop him in the building, and he's made, actually today, he had a really nice deep ball that he took up the middle from Baker Mayfield. But
he must have woke up pissed off this morning.
Yeah, he must have. But I think McMillan has looked more polished, and obviously we've gone take a shot every time I say obviously. We've talked about Jalen McMillan so often in camp and how impressed we are with him. And there is a hype train, and we have to take it, be a little bit cautious when we talk about that, obviously, because there it is again. Because we're going into a point where McMillan is a rookie. He was injured last year. That being said, he looks more polished. I like his hands. I like his route running. I think he looks better categorically than Trey Palmer does at the moment. So I think he will get a majority of the snaps, especially when he plays in preseason. He might show up in preseason. I'm curious to see how many snaps he gets initially on Saturday against the Bengals. I think it'll be quite a bit. And I think by the time it's another player, by the time week 1 hits, I think McMillan will be the starter, quote unquote, there.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of want to see him in live action against other guys that aren't on his team, right? Like guys who are going to actually play him. And I mean, not saying that they're not, but there's a different level of speed when it comes to a live action game to when you're just doing it in practice.
That's why I also joined practices with the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's going to be a lot of fun because oftentimes those are more intense than the preseason games. They got the ones playing, and they get really chippy out there. So McMillan gets some reps against those guys. Be a big test. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're going to be up there in Jacksonville next week, right?
Yes, I will be. So all along, I will be in Duval for all the Bucs. Jags joint practice, and then the preseason game that Saturday. So
I
that'll
love
be
the
fun.
half.
Joint practices are fun, very intense, very chippy. There will be fights. So
I love the
hopefully,
half-hearted Duval you threw in there.
yeah. Listen, I have friends in Duval. I got people there, so have to shout them out. But yeah.
Got to when you can. Got to when you can. But anything else that interests you come from the wide receiver room? I agree with you. I think McMillan's, thus far, clearly ahead in Trey in that race. Trey did have a pretty good day today, which
He
was,
did.
the first day that you could kind of point to through training camp to this point that Trey Palmer had a better day than Jalen McMillan did.
And it should be mentioned too while we're talking about this. Baker Mayfield's deep ball is erratic. It was last year. It still is in training camp. That could be something that he'll work on going into the season. And camp is a time to try stuff, but there's been plenty of times where Palmer's broken loose in this camp and Mayfield has simply overthrown him. So that doesn't help too. Todd Bowles did mention today that he knows that Trey Palmer can go deep, right? He knows that he could run those routes. He wants to see him do more work in the intermediate and underneath routes, and that's a big part of his development.
Right. Yeah, but another interesting asset or facet here for me in the wide receiver room is how fast Sterling Shepard has kind of, moved through these guys after coming in later than they did. Like he came in he was probably the last guy on the roster or one of the last guys on the roster in the wide receiver room.
Yeah.
So seeing him be, the second guy behind Chris Godwin is promising. He has been playing pretty well since coming in onto the team in training camp. And then Rakim Jarrett, obviously there, he's backing up Mike Evans. So pretty cool to see. It's good to see some depth. I think that's something that Buccaneers fans can be, pretty happy about heading into the season too.
Big time. Rakim Jarrett's had a pretty good camp so far too. I think he's been pretty impressive. He's made arguably the catch of camp, which was that back corner end zone grab where he climbed the ladder. That's Rakim. So
yeah,
lot to work with there. This undrafted free agent class from last year. I mean, Marquise Watts, Christian Izzy, Rakim Jarrett. Marquise Watts is a tryout player. Looking really solid, actually. So if those guys can be solid depth pieces, even that's a big win for Jason Light and the Bucs. So
yeah, we just like to keep them or keep seeing them progress. I guess is what I'm trying to say. Throughout training camp, it's good to see them up to this point now that they are taking these spots, especially with Jarrett entering year 2 and Sterling coming in late and being a vet, not really producing last year or the past couple of seasons actually. So it's good to see that in the wide receiver room. So let's switch over to the defense now, River. Get into some of the juicy stuff that we have going on this side of the ball. Let's start in the safeties because we're just going to start at the most obvious position at what is going on there. You got Jordan Whitehead and Antoine Winfield Jr. Kayvon Merriweather, backing up Antoine Winfield, and then they have Christian Izzy backing up Jordan Whitehead. But he is, and Tyke Smith is listed behind him. But those are going to be kind of your 2 starting nickel guys, it seems.
Right. Yeah. Hard to talk about safety. I mean, it's the strongest position group on the team, probably, especially, Antoine and Whitehead. We've seen what they can do. And last time we saw what they can do, it ended with the Super Bowl ring. So definitely a really strong group there. Izzian, we talked about Izzian. Like Izzian, not as strong in coverage, perhaps, as he needs to be a full-time starting guy, but really good pursuit skills, really good tackler. That's a guy that Todd Bowles is going to want to be on the field. And so being a backup safety, being a backup middle cornerback, being a starting nickel quarterback, they'll make it happen for sure.
Right.
Kayvon Merriweather is coming along. I mean, he got some snaps last year in game time. He had a unfortunate play today, which I believe the Bucs posted this on their social media. We were actually sitting right there for this. Mike got past Zion, who I think was on a flat assignment.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Merriweather was supposed to pick him up in the end zone, and he simply did not. And Mike just wide open caught the ball. So I think they like him as a dependable sort of guy that if, worst case scenario, he can play. And I think he did actually play last year. So
it's kind of had to last year.
Yeah. So in that case, we'll see how that goes going forward. But he's got some good players to learn from.
Yeah, and even though he, had that mislap earlier in practice. He did follow it up later today with a diving interception.
I am very remiss for not bringing that up.
There you go. I got you.
Yes, I believe that was Trask, right?
Yep.
Yes.
On a ball thrown by Trask.
He did grab that pick.
Yeah, and he laid out for it too. So it wasn't like it was directly thrown to him. It was a bad ball by Trask, but it was a tough catch for a safety to make, and he was able to bring it in. So good to see that.
Absolutely. Should have mentioned that. Coming along there nicely as well. So can make plays when needed in that aspect, and that's a good thing to have in your arsenal if you're looking to, being around the football is good to do if you're looking to be a good quality depth piece.
Yeah, and let's stay in the secondary here, River. Looking at corner, Jamel Dean, Zion, your 1-2 cornerbacks that you're going to have. Jamel's currently being backed up by Bryce Hall, and we got Josh Hayes backing up Zion McCollum with undrafted free agent Tyreek Funderburg being one of the third cornerbacks probably off the board. So really awesome to see. It just seems like every year the Bucs have these undrafted free agents that 1 or 2 end up like surprising or living up to a lot of hype. So
definitely recently
it in that area, and it's good to see that here's another guy, and we'll probably talk about another one here in a couple minutes too.
Yeah, to quote a former Buccaneers head coach, this team certainly is younger. Definitely a lot of undrafted free agents. Funderburg had a jumping pick, I believe. He just leapt up in the air to grab it on a high point on a Kyle Trask ball. Oh, that was John Wolford. But still, great pick, a great play. And Tom Bowles mentioned that was one of the guys he really wanted to see in pads. And here he is in shells today, technically, but puts the pads on, makes plays. So playing special teams, being able to serve as that depth, that's what you need to do to make the football team. And I think at this rate, he might make the football team. So huge on him. We've talked about this before too, but if one of either Zion or Jamel goes down, that's not good. That's quite bad. With this depth, you got Bryce Hall, but after that, I mean, Josh Hayes, Funderburg, it's getting a bit thin. So
I mean, even with Hall, it's like we saw good Hall today. Like at practice, we saw good Bryce Hall. He was hugging on to Chris Godwin, staying on his hips, playing very well, and then there's days where he just looks like he's lost out in coverage, and
there are for sure.
Yeah, so it's, can you consistently put days together, kind of that you're looking for from Bryce to kind of when you're asking for the first guy to come off at corner, or you need to replace a guy at corner, you want him to be able to step in and not be like a massive drop off. And right now, I think there is a pretty big one between those guys. So hopefully you can see Bryce kind of grow and develop here over the course of training camp, where you can kind of be just a solid guy, be
in the system more. Yeah.
Right. Just understand the ball. But, like you mentioned, Josh Hayes, Keenan Isaac, not really who you want to rely upon. Not really sure if you want to rely upon an undrafted free agent rookie as either, especially one that's slightly undersized, I guess, for his position, which has kind of been a knock on him.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you got 2 above average starting cornerbacks, in my opinion. You just got to hope for health. That's the one thing of that position group. Let's keep going down. We'll just keep moving down. So another interesting aspect here is the linebacker room. We see Yaya obviously outside, JTS claiming that other starting spot with Levante David and KJ Britt playing the 2 inside positions there. The interesting part here comes into play is at the second string level. You got Anthony Nelson backing up Yaya, kind of expected. Chris Braswell backing up JTS. We thought maybe Braswell was going to, kind of overtake probably JTS's spot, maybe earn some snaps for him. Hasn't quite happened. We'll get into that in a second. And then you've got Servassier Dennis, who's been dealing with an injury as of late, backing up KJ Britt, and then another undrafted free agent rookie and former Florida State Seminole Kalen DeLoach backing up Levante. So I love
shout out to our site editor Logan Robinson.
yeah. Shout out Logan on that one. But I think it's very interesting to see that some of these guys are getting moved ahead of the likes of like a JJ Russell and a Marquise Watts. That's my biggest standout point when it comes to Voss and Kalen and Braswell in certain instances, because I'll let you take it from here, River, because what have we seen from Braswell thus far?
There seems to be points of discussion on Braswell. I'm not ready to write off Chris Braswell yet. There were plays that he has made in camp. We talked about that Baker Mayfield rollout to Chris Godwin on the right side of the field for a touchdown on the first day in pads. Braswell probably would have sacked him if they were in pads. So he's been making plays, perhaps not once the pads have been on lighting up, defensive linemen, but he's getting good reps against some solid tackles for sure. And curious again to see, because Todd Bowles didn't tell us, but curious to see how often he plays on Saturday, right? Mm-hmm. JTS dealing with reportedly a little bit of a shoulder issue, and he's back at practice and participating, but it just depends on how cautious they want to be with him. That might be a guy that you really want to give some reps and just see what he can do, because in preseason, if you're an outside linebacker, you can hit the quarterback now. And that's fun. So would-be sacks no longer are would-be sacks. They can be sacks. So that's always great to see outside linebackers go into that role. And I would expect him to still be in the rotation this year pretty considerably, especially with how high they picked him. Jason Light is definitely kind of a sunk cost fallacy kind of guy. I think if he picks you high, he will – or him and the coach will ensure that you play football. So I would assume that that Braswell will play football. How well remains to be seen. But I'm not giving up hope on him yet. It's too silly to give hope on anybody, but just because he's not lighting up the stat sheet in training camp doesn't mean that he might not come into his own. So I would like to see him play a lot of reps against Cincy and just see what he does from there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's not time to hit the alarm button yet, right? Like, not quite, but there is some slight concern that is just kind of being whispered around, basically probably by us, the media, just based off of what we see and what we experienced throughout the course of a training camp practice. But we'll see, kind of what he does in this game upcoming. Don't expect the starters to get a lot of time, maybe a quarter, if that. So expect to see these backups get the majority of that. And then the other two that are really not surprising, but seeing Voss there with the second string, do you see him getting, a decent amount of snaps in this preseason game, especially with his injury? You think they kind of hold him out, wait till the next game, see how he's feeling? And then obviously the big one here is Kalen DeLoach being an undrafted free agent and making it to the second string, backing up Levante, which is, if you can back up a veteran of Levante's caliber, it can only increase your chances of likely being successful later down your career.
I think Kalen's spot's pretty impressive. One of the biggest talking points of the depth chart. I mean, JJ Russell has played very well in preseason typically. I think last year he was actually one of PFF's highest rated preseason players. And in that case, I mean, Kalen's already taken him over on the starting spot. And this is on a depth chart that I think has some veterans, favoring some veterans, right? So that's pretty strong. I don't think Servastier Dennis will play much, if at all, seeing as how he's still not back, right? So
no,
I think Kalen might get quite a bit of reps in preseason against the Bengals, and that would be nice because we've seen him rush the passer quite a bit from that inside linebacker position. I would love to see him really try and flex his coverage skills and see how he does there, because in this Todd Bowles system, and especially as an inside linebacker in general, you have to be able to cover people. So,
and I think
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. I think Kalen's kind of talked about that as one of the things he's kind of had to learn is that, like, he's been blitzing a lot, but that's kind of because he's natural and he's fast, he's quick, he's got quick twitch, he knows where to go, get the ball. But one of the things he's talked about that he's working on is he notices or has noticed or learned recently since coming into the NFL is that he, begins his drop way too far deep. So Levante and the guys have kind of told him, like, just watch the quarterback. When the quarterback, takes his, that's when you start yours at the same time. He's like, you don't have to play super deep to start. So it's something, kind of a learning curve there where he's trying to learn coverage, which is a lot different than being asked to cover at the collegiate level, in my opinion.
For sure. And that's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot of Florida State fans who watch Buccaneers football, so they'll definitely want to watch Kalen DeLoach. And I think it's exciting to see that he's already making this much of an impression. We talked about this earlier, where we thought, yeah, he's definitely going to make the team, at a point because of how much Todd Bowles talked about him and how well he was playing. In taking his second and 13 reps, and this is very encouraging, especially because guys like J.J. Russell are not slouches when it comes to the role that they play, right? J.J. Russell being a solid and dependable kind of guy behind Servastier Dennis is that's a person that's been with this team for a little bit and played a lot of reps in preseason and knows the defense. Here's Kalen DeLoach coming in and staking his claim there. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Another guy I'm excited to see in preseason. All this talk just comes down to I can't wait to see them in preseason, because preseason really not as much about the score and whether you win or lose. It's about seeing certain players and how they react in certain situations. And those situations can come from the natural progression of the preseason game. But, how does Kalen DeLoach do in a 2-minute drill? How does Jalen McMillan do in a 2-minute drill? How do they play in certain matchups and areas against, in this coverage and that coverage? And that's going to be a lot of fun to watch when it comes to these rookies, because this is a young Bucks team, and it was last year and it is this year. So a lot of stuff that can't wait to watch.
Yeah, it's a point of emphasis, and we're going to get our first glimpse Saturday. We're just going to go ahead and end it off with 2 quick things here, River. Defensive line, status quo.
Yeah, how many defensive linemen they keep might be fun. Status quo is who's starting for sure. Cansey, Vea, Gaines behind, Golston in rotation, that sort of thing. But, is Mike Green going to stay on the 53? I believe Mike Green is listed as like one of the rotational backups, right?
I think so. Yeah. He was on the team last year?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, he was. I think he's another undrafted free agent. So, how many they keep, especially this new kickoff rule, and if they want to get that rotational depth in there, that'll be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got a quick question here from Michael on YouTube, River. Who are you looking forward to seeing in the preseason most?
Why don't you go first, Caleb? I'm curious.
Why don't I go first? I think I'm a Florida State graduate, clearly by the life-size spear that I have behind me.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah, so I'm most excited to see Kalen DeLoach and what he's able to do. I expect him, like you, River, to get a large portion of snaps on Saturday, especially Levante probably won't play much with Voss's injury as well. So you'll see a lot of Kalen and then a lot of J.J. Russell as well. So really, really looking forward to seeing him. So I'll toss it back over to you.
I think it might be Braswell. And the reason why I say that is because we've been so impressed with Jalen McMillan this entire camp. I have a feeling that he'll get to show his stuff. And I am excited to see if he can maintain that against other players. But we just talked about some of the minor concerns you see from Braswell in camp, this and that, yada, yada, not get off the ball, struggling on the refs. In a live game situation where you can hit the quarterback and you can go all out and you can put the pads on and go play football, I would like to see how Chris Braswell plays. Because we talked to Chris Braswell. He says the speed doesn't feel that different to him, but the line plays a lot better in the NFL. I think the speed probably is a lot faster. But I like to see how he plays against those types of players. So it could be a good first indicator of whether he needs a lot of work or just a little work.
Yeah, and that makes sense. A lot of attention being on the defense. I feel like we know kind of what the offense brings, what they're kind of capable of, who's kind of going to be where, what kind of playing time we're seeing in the preseason type deal. So good to see that. So just shout out our co-writer JC popping in. He had some of his kids' business to take care of tonight, and that's totally understandable. So JC will be back soon enough with us.
We miss you, JC.
Yeah, we miss you, man. We miss you. But just real quick, River, to end this off, special teams. It looks like Bucky Irving is our kick returner number 1, with Sean Tucker also on the first team there with him. So 2 running backs. So as you had mentioned earlier, there with keeping a Sean Tucker on the roster. Backed up by Cameron Johnson and DJ Williams at kick returner. And then punt returning is Trey Palmer, Cameron Johnson the backup there. And then obviously our punter and kicker are remaining the same as last season.
Yeah, interesting, I think, with Irving and Tucker, because we've been seeing a lot of wide receivers kind of go in and out on that kick return. Guys like Trey Palmer, guys like Jalen McMillan. So it is interesting that the running backs come up, though, because really with this new kickoff format, it's a run play. It's a really long run play. So the returners have a big head start and they're run blocking. So running backs make sense really from that perspective, because if you're trying to hit a hole or bounce outside or find your way through, you're already used to doing that. It's just this time you're way in the backfield. So that could be fun, and it makes sense they would use guys like Irving or Tucker, because if something were to happen to them on special teams, they're not starting players at the positions. Irving will still probably factor in pretty big, like we've been talking about, because he'll probably be a big factor in the pass game. He'll probably be RB2 until Chase Edmonds comes back, which we don't know when or what's even wrong with him. So that's something to monitor. Mm-hmm. But it'll be fun. That's going to be another thing, how this preseason will affect the kicking sort of, I guess, meta in football, because our team's going to reveal what their kicking strategy is. Are they going to do a little small version of it? Are they going to? So we've seen a little bit of what the Bucs might be planning to do, but there's also plenty that they're probably planning when we're not watching. And it's going to be a lot of fun to see just how each team approaches that, how much of your hand you give, and maybe even on Saturday, if they do put Irving and Tucker there, or they start mixing and matching, that's going to be interesting to watch.
Yeah, it's a learning experience for all of us. We see what we see during training camp, but I'm sure there's all kinds of different meshes and things that they're throwing into this new kick return deal. But Bucky Irving's looked great filling that role thus far. He's got a lot of speed, so seeing him get that head start and then hit, once he sees a hole and he hits it, that's probably when he's at his fastest, which you and I talked about today, River. It's like, we see this from Bucky. It's like, if he doesn't see a hole, it's kind of like, I just got to run into it and, see what I can get. But like, it seems like he's moving slow at those points, but when he sees a hole, he goes. And so I think that kind of fits his strengths very, very well.
When you talk about Bucky Irving too, his big thing in college was breaking tackles. That was his whole shebang when he played at Oregon. Mm-hmm. In the NFL, it's slightly harder to do that with how much better the talent is. So preseason is another opportunity, because you get to break tackles. They're trying to bring you down this time. They're not just trying to hit you in pads. If he can make a lot of these guys miss in preseason, that's going to be a really good, strong indicator for the future, because that's what his bread and butter was in college. He can carry that over. That's going to be a strong change of pace back for the Buccaneers, and that's exactly what they want to do. If he struggles, we'll see how that goes.
Yep. It's just another one of those things to keep an eye on, and one of those things just to kind of see, since it's very new, along with some of these other rules that are being put into place this year. So just one more quick question from Michael on YouTube. He asked, how much do you expect Graham Barton to play in this first preseason game? I think we might have touched on that before, but if you just want to kind of touch on that, River.
Sure, yeah. We talked to Tom Bowles. He didn't say who's going to do what, how they're going to line. I believe he said they met about it today after practice. I think Graham's going to get a lot of reps. I think the rookies are going to get a lot of reps, and I think they need it. Especially because this is a young team, like you mentioned, and Hainsey and Barton are in this quote-unquote competition. I do think Barton will win the starting job because they picked him that high. But he'll definitely get a lot of reps, and he'll probably be just as excited as anybody else to play against a different team. And opportunities to really get used to a live scrimmage and some of the game speed, and when you're really hitting and apply. He's going to want to apply the techniques that he's learned so far. So I think we'll see him play quite a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think you kind of want to throw him into the fire. You kind of just want to, see how he does. So I think, even though Hainsey's listed as the one there, I think that he won't probably be there long, because what you're getting from him. You kind of want to see how Barton is going to perform when he's just kind of thrust in there. So I think that's probably the best mode.
Yeah, iron sharpens iron, as the great philosopher Vita Vea recently said.
So. Absolutely, and you can trust anything that Via says. So,
100%.
But with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Hear the Cannons, presented by BucsGameday. If you guys don't already, head over to YouTube, shoot us a subscription, shoot us a follow, a like, do all that. We're bringing you daily content, whether that's from articles, from short videos up on YouTube and on our Instagram, to pressers with coaches and players, to post practice recaps, all kinds of different content.
There will be post game recaps. Yeah,
there will be post game recaps, which we'll likely have those. Maybe in the regular season, we'll probably do live game recaps, but we're definitely going to hit those recaps through the articles after these games. For that, the Cincinnati game. As always, I appreciate River coming on here. You guys go follow BucsGameday on Twitter. Go follow Buccaneers Game Day on Instagram, because we couldn't get that that title or that at per se there. And then on as well at BucsGameday. You can follow myself at CHS Null on Twitter, and then you can follow our lead editor and writer River Wells at River H Wells on Twitter as well. With that being said, guys, looking forward to seeing you guys next week. But before then, go Bucs, and we'll see you guys on